everyone. This is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and today I would like to tell you a bit about my recent cruise vacation. This was the very first cruise that I've ever taken, so I was really excited for it. And I've done a few of these little travel vlog types of videos before. And I've had a few people mention that they really like them, so I thought it would just be fun to tell you about my trip and show you some pictures and video just from little bits of my trip here and there. So I took a cruise out of Miami, and this was actually a group trip for my brother-in-law, his wedding party. They decided to do a joint bachelorette party trip, and we were very excited for it because it has been very, very cold, or it had been very, very cold before we left. Luckily now it's kind of warmed up a little bit, but we were very excited for it. So I'm going to kind of go through our trip day by day and just tell you a little bit about it. So before the cruise at all, we had to get our dog sorted, our dog Edna. And my parents were going to be watching her while we were gone, and we decided we went to my parents on Friday, and we didn't fly out until Sunday, early Sunday morning. But we decided to go Friday night after work, and that way we could just kind of get her settled in, get us situated, and have at least one good night's sleep before we needed to wake up super early Sunday morning for our flight, because we were leaving my parents' house at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday to catch our early flight. And we have flown out of both Seattle and Portland airports. I'm on the West Coast. I think we probably do Seattle more just because they tend to have more frequent flights or more varied flights in the locations that we're going. But this time we found a non-stop hotel, or not hotel, a non-stop flight out of Portland. And so we booked that. So we had to drive to Portland in the morning, and my dad had offered to take us, but we decided that we would just get parking, and then that way when we fly back in, we could just have our car. We didn't have to have them driving a bunch to come pick us up. I know that they would be very willing to do that, but we just didn't, they were already watching Edna for us, so we figured this would be easier, and we did one of those services that it's not at the airport for the parking, but it's one of the local hotels offers longer term parking in their parking lots, specifically for people that are flying. And so we just did that, and we had a great experience with it. We were able to get parked and then just take the hotel shuttle to the airport. And the last time I'd been to the Portland airport, PDX, they had been doing a bunch of remodeling, and it is so beautiful now. It is just such a peaceful airport. It's just so relaxing, which is, wild for an airport, but it just looks really nice. They did a really good job with the remodel. And we got through security pretty easily. It was pretty early still, so we were able to go get some coffee and just a couple of little breakfast pastries while we waited at the gate for our flight. And yeah, our flight was non-stop to Miami, which was really nice. We usually don't get non-stop flights just because they're typically much more expensive, but when I was booking the flights, I had been like watching prices for a good while. I always like to track prices before I book anything. And we had been looking in the next cheapest options for our flights. It was at most like $60 or $70 cheaper, but it was either like a 45-minute layover in Denver, which is like a huge airport, and I thought a 45-minute layover would have been cutting it closer than I would have liked. Because with our luck, it would have been like at the opposite end of the airport or something. And then the other option was a 12-hour layover in Salt Lake City. I think it was Salt Lake City. And it was at least two places where we could have been genuinely concerned about getting delayed with winter weather if we had done either of those options. And so we figured like $60 or $70 for a nonstop flight. We don't have to worry about transferring. We don't have to worry about winter weather. Like, let's just spend the money. Like that is well worth it. So we were very lucky to get the nonstop flight, and we got into Miami in the afternoon, and we had pre-scheduled an Uber because the hotel we got in Miami didn't have like an airport shuttle, which was okay. The hotel was like, it was a decent hotel, and we got it for a really good price, so we were okay like doing the Uber. And we had scheduled it ahead of time. We had great experiences with Uber the whole trip. It was so lovely. Miami Uber drivers are great. And the weather was so nice. Our entire trip, it was just so lovely and sunny and warm, which was a really welcome reprieve from the freezing temperatures back at home. So we got checked into our hotel because we flew on Sunday and our cruise didn't leave until Monday. But we wanted to make sure that we got there and like had enough time, and we wouldn't have been worried about like catching the ship if our flight was delayed or something. So we went to our hotel, and then we went out for dinner. There was a really highly reviewed sushi restaurant pretty close to the hotel, so we went and got sushi, and then we honestly just kind of went back after dinner and like crashed. We were so tired just from getting up super early to get ready to leave at 3:30 in the morning, and then it's just, travel days are just really long, so we just kind of crashed. And then the next morning we were actually able to just kind of like wake up leisurely because our our like check-in time for the cruise wasn't until 11:30. So we had like a decent amount of time in the morning to just kind of take our time, and we got a hotel that had continental breakfast because my husband loves a continental breakfast. And so we went and got some breakfast, and then just kind of slowly got ready for the day. And we had scheduled an Uber from our hotel to the cruise terminal. And he was such a nice man. He was like such a sweet older gentleman, and he was practicing his English. And I'm always like, he was apologizing the whole time, and I was like, you know so much more English than I know Spanish, so like, and his English was like really good, and we could understand, everything he was saying. He was like, let me practice, I'm gonna try and say this, let me know if you don't understand what I'm saying. And like everything he said, we fully understood. So he was such a sweet older gentleman. And when we got there to the cruise terminal, we realized we had to quickly reorganize our bags because on the drive we had realized that we accidentally packed the wrong theme outfit for the first night. And we wanted to make sure that we had the right one in our smaller carry-on bags, since the bigger checked bag was going to be taken to the ship for us, and we might not have gotten it until like later in the evening. So we just wanted to make sure that we had that first night's dinner outfit ready. So on the sidewalk, we had our bags open and like quickly tried to shuffle things around. And the cruise terminal, I mean, like I said, this was my very first cruise. My husband had taken one cruise before, but it was a much smaller cruise and it was to Alaska. So it was a very different type of cruise than one, going out of Miami into the Bahamas. But the cruise terminal was much more like an airport than I expected. Like it even had little like boarding groups when we got there to like get on the ship. So we boarded and we were able to go store our carry-on bags in our room, but the rooms weren't like fully ready yet. So we were just able to like quickly go in, drop them off, and then leave. And so we did that, and then we went back down to kind of get all of our cruise stuff in order. So we had to like activate our key cards and like make sure that all of our payment stuff was like set up, because on a cruise, I assume that like most cruises would be like this. You get a cruise card. This was my card. So you can see that we did an MSC cruise. And you get a little card like this, and this is like your everything card. This gives you access to, like, if we had a drink package, and so when you go to the bars, you just hand them your card, and they just, like, swipe it, and, like, it just takes care of it for you, so you don't have to carry your ID, or debit cards, or cash, or anything like that. It's all just on this little card. And so that was super convenient, and we were able to, like, you could like preload cash on here, but we just had one of our cards, like our credit card just attached, so anything we charged to it just got charged to our credit card. And then we also had to watch a safety demo and figure out where we needed to go for, like, if an emergency happened. And then after we kind of did that, the rest of our party had gotten on the ship, went to their rooms and such, and so we met up with them for lunch, and that was really exciting because we were meeting most of the group for the first time, and we had only met my sister-in-law once before, and we were meeting, her friends and her sister and their partners, like, all for the first time, so it was really fun to just get to know everyone. And we sat outside. The cruise had like all of these, buffets that are all included. And then of course it has separate specialty restaurants that you can go to, and a separate like dinner restaurant that's included, but it's like assigned to you, and it's a specific like restaurant for you for the cruise. And we got to sit outside. They had lots of outside balcony seating, which was really nice. And then after lunch, we got to walk around and explore the ship and enjoy the views. The water was just so pretty. And we got to see some very, very fancy looking houses and yachts all around the port area. So it was pretty fun. And the ship was just really beautiful. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was like very modern and just like a beautiful hotel like that, it was like a floating hotel. I guess that's what a cruise ship is. And I think our ship, we had learned, could hold, it was like over 5,000 people. I don't remember exactly how many, but it was over 5,000 people, over 5,000 guests. So think about all of the staff on top of that. I think that is just, it was wild. It was huge. And the main kind of lobby area of the ship, there was like central lounges. It was just so beautiful. It had these gorgeous crystal light up stairs. And it also had a huge spa area, which was really calm and serene. And we did a walk around tour of it with one of the staff when we got there, but my husband and I didn't end up getting any of the services. I think a lot of the rest of our group did, but we didn't really want to spend the extra money for it. So we didn't end up using the spa, but it was really beautiful and just ginormous. It was a huge spa. And then later on, we met back up with everyone in one of the lounges to get drinks and hang out. And my brother-in-law and his fiance had like gifts for their wedding parties, which was really sweet. And even though I wasn't technically in the wedding party, like my husband is a groomsman for my brother-in-law, but they included me in so much, and it was like so lovely. Like they were just so nice. And we had gotten, like, all of the girls had gotten these cute like pink scrunchies, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see, but it says like squad. It was like a cheesy like bridal squad. And so they gave me like some of the bridesmaids gifts as well. That was really sweet. And then we also got matching. It was like shirts that all have the same theme, but they all say different things. And so this was my shirt. Let's see if you can see the full thing at all. So it says, "Girls just want to have fun." And we had a specific day when we were going to be wearing our matching t-shirts and taking pictures. Maybe I'll like make some fabric sounds with this. So that was really lovely. I wasn't expecting, like bridal party gifts, but that was cute. And they also got us some magnets to hang outside of our doors, because a lot of cruise ships, the doors or the walls around the doors are magnetic, and you can just put magnets on it, and a lot of people decorate their doors, and it's really cute. And the magnets help you like very quickly see your room because it is endless halls. It is ginormous, full of rooms. And so that was actually very convenient to like have our magnets. But sadly, by the end of our trip, I think all but one of our rooms had their magnets stolen. And my husband and I, we were doing so good until the very last day of the cruise, and somebody stole our room magnets. We were so bummed that we didn't get to take them home. So that was a little bit sad. But we went back to our room because the rooms were all now finished kind of later in the day. And I always like to unpack a bit when we travel. Like, it's just really nice to like not be living out of my suitcase. So I went and just kind of unpacked my suitcase, and we had a decent sized wardrobe, and the room was actually way bigger than I expected. And we did splurge for a balcony room, which was part of why we didn't want to do the extra spa services, because we had splurged on the balcony. And I was so glad we did that. We heard from so many people like, "Oh, you don't need a balcony, like it'll be fine." And if you're introverted at all, get a balcony room. Like, it was so lovely. Just at the end of the day, everything is so busy everywhere you go because there's just people like all over the ship, right? Even the quieter decks, like, it's not private, it's not your own space. And so at the end of the day, my husband and I would just sit out on the balcony and like look out at the ocean, and it was so peaceful and so quiet. And we had a really fun time on the trip, but we're both a bit more introverted in that, like, we can be really social, really outgoing, but then we need that like recharge time. So after I got unpacked, we went up to the top deck for the sail away party, and we got to watch, the ship as we pulled away from the deck, and we got to dance a bit. There was a little party going on the top deck, and the vibes on the cruise ship were really fun. I didn't know exactly what to expect. We're not like huge party people, And so I wasn't sure, like, is it going to be kind of crazy the whole time? But it was just fun. And, it wasn't like a dedicated family cruise. Like, I would say the majority of guests were adults, but there were still families with kids, so it never really like felt out of hand or like it was like too adult for families. And we got some gelato and it was really tasty, and they had a really good selection of non-dairy gelato for my husband, and the gelato wasn't included though, so you do have to, we knew that when we got it, but we decided like we'll spend the money. But our philosophy was typically like we already spent the money for the all-inclusive stuff. We have a drink package, so like let's use that and like try not to spend too much extra money, because like I said, we had just prioritized getting the room with a balcony, so we just wanted to be, like a little bit more money conscious kind of elsewhere. And then after the sail away party, we went to our room. We wanted to take just a little bit of extra time to like get ready for the show and for dinner later. And our group had a mermaid theme for our dinner outfits. That was fun. So there was like lots of sequins and blues and greens. And I'm gonna put this shirt away because I'm just kind of fiddling with it. And the show was a Queen tribute kind of show. It was pretty good. It was a little cheesy, but my husband and I usually we'll enjoy ourselves with things like that. Like, I think a lot of the time, if you go in and just expect that you're gonna have a good time, just have fun with it. Don't take stuff too seriously, it'll be fun, But after the show, we had some time to kill before dinner because our dinner was at 9:15, which for us, we eat dinner typically quite early. So that was, a little bit of an adjustment. And my husband and I were the youngest of the group because he's the youngest of his siblings. And we, we're in our late 20s and everyone was in their mid to late 30s. So some of them also were struggling with the later dinner time. And I think we fared a little bit better because we were coming from the West Coast, which is, 3 hours earlier. So 9:15 would have felt like 6:15 to us, at least on the first day. But I think that we adjusted to the time change very quickly because we had the really early flight into Miami. But either way, while we were waiting for dinner, we went to the casino just for a little bit, and we don't really go to casinos very often. I've only been, just a few times. But we always have fun, and we have this idea, we will take out a certain amount of money, and then this is the money that we are willing to lose, and we are spending it to have fun in the casino. That is our expectation. We never go into it of oh, we're gonna win money, my husband always likes to try his hand at some of the tables, and I feel like he's quite good at blackjack, and as good as you can be at blackjack, right? And then I always like to just do the fun penny slots. I just have fun. I have no idea what any of the lines mean, or when I win something, I have no idea why I win, but I just have fun with it. And so we did that for a little bit, and then dinner was a little bit interesting, I think, because we were all so hungry that we were all just really run down. And, dinner, the food itself was a little bit disappointing for some of the folks. I've heard different things about different cruises. Like I said, this was my first cruise, so I don't have any experience with any other cruise lines. My experience with the food on MSC was that some things were really good, but a lot of things were just kind of meh. It was mediocre. I'm not too particularly picky about food, so like I still, had decent food, but there were only a few meals that I had that I was like, oh, this is really good. But I would say there were a few meals that I did not like. So dinner was a little bit disappointing. We were originally going to go to one of the later events on the ship after dinner, but we were all just so run down, and we just all decided let's just go to bed and we'll meet up in the morning instead. So we went back to our room and we just sat on the balcony for a bit, and we just got to enjoy the fresh air and just the peaceful ocean. It was just so lovely before going to bed. It was a little bit eerie to see the ocean at night, but it was still really, really cool, and we could still see Miami and all of the lights in the distance, so that was nice. Overall, I felt like the first day was a little bit hectic. I think we're just still a little bit overwhelmed. I think that would be the word. We were just a little overwhelmed. So we were happy to just hang out in the room for a bit and get a good night's sleep. And then our day 2 was just an at-sea day, so we didn't have any ports that we were going to stop in. And we overall had a much better day for our day 2 than the first day. I think we had just been a bit stressed, and travel is hectic, and getting on the ship and learning about it, and it's huge. So I honestly didn't have the ship layout fully figured out until maybe, the third or fourth day into our trip. But we wanted to just kind of let ourselves sleep in however late our bodies kind of wanted in the morning and just get lots of rest. And we woke up and went out to the balcony. Again, a win for the balcony, because in the morning we just got to have a really good, slow, steady morning. We got to wake up to the beautiful ocean view, and it was so sunny, and we got to smell that fresh air all before we had to get out of our pajamas, or deal with people at all. So that was really lovely. And before the trip, I haven't talked about my motion sickness at all. I was really nervous about getting motion sick because I get sick very, very easily. If somebody else is driving me at all, I will most likely get motion sick, even if it's a straight highway. I have no idea. But I usually take Dramamine, the non-drowsy Dramamine, when we fly, and that works really well for me. And so I had planned to just take Dramamine on the cruise and hope that that would work, but I had a few backup options. I had every form of Dramamine. I had the non-drowsy, I had the regular, and then I had the fully, the 100% natural, which is just it's mostly just a high dose of ginger. And then I also had talked to my doctor before we left to get a prescription for a motion sickness medication, just in case my Dramamine didn't work. But luckily, I had taken my Dramamine before we got on the ship on that first day, and then I just kept up with my doses, and it felt fine. When we pulled away, we felt fine, and I didn't take another dose overnight, and I woke up, and I took one, as soon as I woke up, just preemptively, and I still felt fine. So I think that I fared better than most of our group with motion sickness because I was just regularly on my Dramamine. I was just constantly taking a dose, and the non-drowsy Dramamine luckily doesn't affect me at all. I know some people still feel a little drowsy on it, but I don't feel sleepy at all on it. I was able to still have some drinks, and I never felt any adverse effects there. So yeah, my Dramamine, I was so happy that it worked really well. We went and had a bit of a light breakfast because we were going to have a cute little brunch with the rest of the group at one of the restaurants. And we went and hung out by the pool before brunch and just kind of soaked our feet for a bit and just kind of hung out. And they did have an adults only pool. That was the one we were at. And we all got a kick out of like how on top of it the lifeguard was. It is nice to go to an area, especially a pool, and like not have to be stressed about like watching other people's kids or getting splashed or, you know, whatever. And the lifeguard was like constantly kicking out families that would try, they would just like meander on down and just like try and let their kids go in the pool. And he was like on it. He was like right out of his chair telling them like, you have to get out of the pool. But there wasn't really like great signage about it, so I honestly couldn't really blame the families too much that they didn't know that it was an adult only pool. But yeah, the lifeguard was like super on top of it. And then after the pool, we all went to brunch, and at this time we had gotten an announcement from the captain that we were going to be changing our course a little bit due to some weather. And so the ship started like really moving, and everyone in our group, we were sitting at our brunch table, like everyone was starting to really feel it. And I was coming up to my next dose of Dramamine, and so I also was starting to feel the movement quite a bit, which just made me so much more anxious, because it was like, if I don't go back and get my Dramamine soon, I'm worried that I'm going to start feeling sick, and then it's a really hard road to like get back to not feeling sick. So I was just sitting there like so anxious the whole time, and I had gotten a Caesar salad for brunch. I was just kind of feeling something lighter, and this was my most like disappointing meal that I had the entire trip, because I love a Caesar salad, and this was the driest chicken that I have ever experienced. If you've ever seen Christmas Vacation, the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and they have the turkey, and they're like, some of them are like dipping the turkey in the water because it's like so dry, like it reminded me of that. It was almost like comically dry, and we all were like getting a kick out of it. So I just kind of picked at that. But I had gotten a bread pudding dessert, and that was really good. So I ate that really quickly, and then I was like, so sorry guys, I am gonna go back to the room and like take my Dramamine. And after this point, I always carried my Dramamine with me. I had a cute little like cruise purse, and at that point I was like, I need to just have it with me at all times just in case. And so after that, that was a bit of a learning experience, and I took my Dramamine and I had a bit of a lie down, and then I felt a lot better. And then we did some activities around the ship. There was like a few little trivia events that we did. I'm not particularly good at trivia, but it's always fun. And then we went and did the water slides that afternoon. I love water slides. I love water parks, and they had quite a few different water slides. They had one that you could do a partner tube, like a double inner tube down, and so my husband and I went and grabbed a double inner tube and had so much fun. It was so wild because that slide is completely dark. You can't see a thing until you get to the end, and it was so fun because you have no idea which way you're turning. Like it was a lot of fun. And we had my husband at the back of the inner tube and me in the front of the inner tube, just because he weighs quite a bit more than I do. And at the end of the slide, it like drops down into like the end pool where you like come out. And I felt like I was being like waterboarded when we dropped down, because my husband was at the back, and so he was like driving it down when we dropped, and my face was like covered in water, and I was like trying to like breathe. But that was like a lot of fun. We had a really fun time at the water slides. And we also did one, they have one that like goes over the side of the ship, and that was a lot of fun, and it's like clear on parts of it so you can like see when you're coming down, and that one was really fun too. after the slides, decided that we were gonna go get a lighter dinner at the buffet just before we got ready for actual, like, the show and the dinner later, just because we had learned from yesterday or the day before that we, like, desperately needed to eat something before 9:15. Like, that just was, like, not gonna happen, that we were gonna wait until 9:15. So we went and did that, and then we got ready for dinner, and our group's theme for that night was, like, all black cocktail. So we got all dressed up, and each night we took, like, lots of group photos, and then we went to the show. And the second night, the show was a magic show, and we thought it was fun. We like magic, but, you know, it was a bit cheesy. I think it was a little bit more geared towards, like, the families and the kids. And then dinner time went a lot better. Like, we were all much happier, and I was especially just thankful that we had just done, you know, first dinner after the slides. And then we just hung out around, I think it was called the atrium, like the central lobby area of the ship. And they had, like, lots of fun events and dancing and stuff, so we hung out there for a bit. And then we just went to bed. And the next day we were in Nassau. We pulled into the port for Nassau, and we went for a pretty early breakfast because we had scheduled a walking tour while we were in Nassau, and that left at, I think, like 8:15. Like, we were leaving the ship at 8:15. And the walking tour was really neat. We got to see, like, lots of really cool historic buildings, and we saw the Queen's Staircase, which was really cool. We really wanted to see the fort. That was, like, the one thing we were really excited about seeing, but it was sadly closed for construction. And the day before we got there, someone, like a tourist, had gotten injured around the fort, and so they had it, like, completely closed off the day that we got there to anyone. Like, we couldn't see any parts of the fort, so we saw it from afar in the parking lot. So I was a little bit sad, but we were, you know, it was okay. And we learned that Nassau has tons of law offices because lots of people have bank accounts in the area. They need lawyers to kind of, like, handle those accounts legally, and so Nassau is filled with law offices all over. And it was a little bit interesting because we would have, like, a really gorgeous, like, you know, 1700s historical building pointed out to us, and then the sign would just be, like, you know, a generic law office sign. So it was really, really funny. And there were gorgeous trees everywhere. I love trees. Anywhere we go, I love trees. So lots of gorgeous trees. We didn't get to see any geckos. We learned that they have very large geckos in Nassau, but we didn't see any. But we did see, we were in, is it called Parliament Square? We were in the area where a lot of the government buildings were located, and we learned that the government buildings are painted in this particular shade of pink, and the police buildings are, like, built and painted in a particular, it's like a minty aqua green color, and so they have dedicated colors for their different buildings. So that was kind of fun to learn. And then when we were, like, back on the ship looking over, we could, like, point out, you know, oh, that's probably a police building, you know, and that was kind of interesting. And after the walking tour, we went to buy some souvenirs, and the souvenir shops that we went to had these funny, they had them labeled as, like, American mannequins. And so we got some souvenirs for my family. We picked up some rum cakes that were made there. And then we found a nice magnet for our fridge. We always like to get a magnet on our travels. And we also got our passports stamped So that was cool. They had like an official little office for that. And then we decided to get back on the boat for lunch because we figured we would have lunch on the ship rather than spend money around the port, because everything around the port was very expensive and very like tourist focused, because all of the cruise ships stop at this port. Like, it wasn't just the port for our cruise ship. So when we were there, I think there were 5 other cruise ships. So lots, like thousands and thousands of people all just cruising, you know. And so we were just kind of like enjoying the really quiet boat. The ship was so quiet because everyone was like off in the port doing fun excursions and doing things. And then we did the zip line on the ship, and I think the zip line was like $11 or something like that. And I was in like a thick strapped tank top when we walked up, and the guy was like, no, sorry, like you can't do it, you have to have sleeves. And we were like, oh, we had no idea. And so he said to my husband, you can do it first, and then you can run back here and give her your shirt. And then she can do it, and then you can meet her down there. And so I was originally going to be like, no, you know, he can just do it, that's fine. And then my husband was like, no, sure, yeah, I can do that. So my poor husband had to run the length of the ship like multiple times for his shirt. It was so funny, but we had a fun time on the zip line. We had done zip lines before when we were in Costa Rica, which, you know, obviously the cruise ship zip line is like nothing like that, but it was fun, and we got to see Nassau while we were on the zip line, so that was nice. And then we kind of hung out on the top deck for a bit and got some drinks, and we don't really tend to drink too much, but I got a margarita. The bartender made mine ginormous, and I was like struggling with a straw, and so he gave me a spoon for my margarita. So that was ridiculous. I did not finish it, but I felt like I had drank like 2 full margaritas, and I had probably only cleared it just to the top, and it was so much. And then we went for an early dinner again, and we watched what they call pier runners, and it is people that are late for their all aboard time, and they are sprinting to try and get to their ship. And the cruise ships, if you don't know, they will leave without you. If you are not back to your ship at that time, they might wait like 10 minutes, but they will leave. And so we did witness a couple of people from the other ships get left behind, and that was, you know, it was like a little bit sad. But there were also some people that were like so leisurely. You know, we know that your all aboard time is in 5 minutes, and they're like, you know, walking down this really long pier, taking their sweet time. So it was really, really interesting. We all got a kick out of watching them, and we were like cheering on the people that were like sprinting to try and get to their ship, and we were like, you know, come on, you can do it. And we hung out for the sail away party on the top deck, and Nassau was so pretty in the sunlight, and it just stretches out, and you can see all the trees in the distance, and it was just really, really pretty. And we got ready for White Night, which was for the whole ship. Everyone on the ship was the same theme, and so that was the one night where our group also matched the theme for the ship night. And we hung out, got some drinks with the group. We did, you know, group pictures, and we had dancing, and we got pictures with the officers in the atrium. Like, they had like a, you know, come take pictures with the captains and stuff. So we got pictures with them as a big group, and we went and had dinner, and then we were going to the white party. The ship had like a big white party on the top deck, and we were on our way there, and we decided to like walk back and do the glass elevators because we'd get a really nice look at the top decks in the glass elevator. And we had done the glass elevator before. I'll put a clip in here. But this time that night we got stuck in the elevator with 12 other complete strangers. And so the clip that I have, that's not from when we got stuck, but we were in that elevator for 20 minutes and the glass had like fogged up by the time we were only a few minutes in. The glass had fogged up and we had like pressed the emergency call button, but we weren't sure if like it had registered or done anything. So we were waving down the people that were in the elevator next to us that were like getting in and off, and we like waved them down and we were like, get help, we're stuck. And it was so funny. I think we all kept good spirits, and luckily none of us, we didn't have anybody that was like freaking out or, anybody that had a medical emergency or anything like that. But we were all giggling because all of us were on our way up to the white party, and the floor before we got stuck, we had told there was like one single person, and she was like, oh, I don't want to crowd in. And we were like, no, it's fine. Like, we can fit. Like, we're all going to the party. Like, it's fine. And so we let her on, and like we got stuck on the next floor, and we were like, oh no. We were in an elevator that said that it had an occupancy allowance of like 23 people. I have no idea how you could get 23 people to fit in that elevator. I felt like, we couldn't move our arms without like bumping somebody. And so we were stuck, and we eventually, we had flagged down the people, they went and got help. The worker had to get like the elevator technician up there. And so we were waiting that whole time. We were grateful that we were in the glass elevator because we could see out, we could see people. Whereas we were thinking, like, if this was one of the enclosed elevators, like, that would have been terrible. But they eventually lowered us to the floor below, and then the doors opened and it was fine. And so we all like very quickly rushed down, and we hung around on that floor for about 5 minutes. Like most of, us that had been stuck in the elevator, we were expecting, maybe some staff would come down and like talk to us, make sure everyone was okay. And that didn't happen. So we were like, you know what? We're just like, let's go over, take the stairs. We're not getting back in an elevator. Let's take the stairs. We'll just go to the party and we'll just, report it and like talk to service desk in the morning. So we went to the white party, and that was so fun. It was one of those situations where if you just like, don't worry about embarrassing yourself. They had a bunch of like group dances, but they were all really fun, and they would like teach you how to do it, and everyone was just having such a good time, and we really enjoyed that. And overall, even with getting stuck in the elevator, we had just a really, really fun night. And now it's a funny story, like looking back, getting stuck in the elevator with 12 strangers. We didn't have anyone else in our group other than, it was me and my husband. That was it. Everyone else was complete strangers from us. So we got to know some of them quite intimately because we were jam-packed in there for 20 minutes. And now it's like a funny story, but that at the time it was like quite stressful. So we overall had a really fun night, and we tried to sleep in a little bit, but the ship was really rumbling in the morning, and we woke up and just kind of wanted to take a look outside and just kind of see, like where we were at. We assumed we were probably pulling in to the next port, which was the MSC like private island, and I think it was called like Ocean Cay. And so it's like a private island owned by the cruise line, and so we knew that we'd be pulling in that morning. And we woke up and like pulled back our blinds just as the lighthouse was passing by us. Like we were just pulling right by it. So that was so cool. Yet another win for the balcony. And then we went back to sleep for a bit and got some breakfast before heading off to the service desk. I hate making a fuss about anything. Like I would much rather just deal with stuff, but this time we were like, you know what, we should really stop by the service desk. We at least should talk to them about it and like see like what steps they're taking to make sure that that isn't happening. Are they closing that elevator? Like, have they looked into it? Like all of that. Because it could have been so much worse if we had anybody that, you know, had a panic attack during it, or if we had anybody, you know, with diabetes and they crashed during that time. Like, it could have been a lot worse than it was. So we were grateful that it hadn't been that situation, but we just wanted to make sure, you know, that they were aware and had plans moving forward. But we ended up talking with them and they were nice, but I felt really frustrated because it almost seemed like they didn't quite like believe us, or like they thought that we were like exaggerating or like making a bigger deal out of it than it was, because they were like, well, we don't actually have any reports of an elevator being stuck. And we were like, what do you mean? Like, we got helped, like somebody helped us. And they were like, yeah, but we didn't get any like reports, we didn't get calls to the service desk. And we were like, we pressed the button, and we also, like, none of us could get a call out from the elevator. And so we had messaged the chat bot on the app, and it was like, we've alerted, you know, emergency services on the ship, they're on their way. And so they were like, yeah, our service desk didn't get a call. And, you know, I'd mentioned about the chat bot, and they were like, well, yeah, but we wouldn't have a record of that. And I was like, okay, I'm just telling you, like, what happened and why we didn't call the service desk. And it was a weird situation. Like I said, they were nice, but it just, like, it felt like they just weren't fully understanding what we were saying, or like it was just a weird interaction. And they were like, oh, okay, well, you know, we're so sorry that that happened to you. We'll send like a complimentary bottle, like up to your room. And we were like, okay, you know, that's fine. Thank you. We just wanted to make sure that this was reported and that you knew about it. And we decided to just kind of head off for the day because we were gonna like hang out around the private island. And we had a crystal kayak excursion planned, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's like a kayak, but it's completely clear. And we really love kayaking. And we like got off the ship and the island was beautiful, but it was like already so hot. And we were like really diligent about making sure we had our sunscreen on, and we just wanted to make sure we were like nice and safely protected, especially when we were out on the water on the kayaks. And we had a fun time, but we only saw like one sea turtle when we pulled out of the little bay, which was really cool. That was really fun to see the turtle. And then we saw like a small school of tiny little silverfish, and that was kind of it. And we had a really fun time like kayaking around, and the water was beautiful, so we enjoyed ourselves. But I would say that you could definitely save money and just get the regular kayaks, because the crystal kayaks I think were a little bit more expensive. So if you want to go kayak and see some fish, like, I would just say, you know, you could just do the regular kayaks. I think that would be fine. And we did see plenty of birds and pelicans. There were pelicans kind of all over. And we got some buffet food and drinks. And because the island was private and specific to the cruise line, there were like restaurants and buffets and bars all around the island that were all included. So that was really nice. And I think there were extra, like, you know, specialty restaurants, but we never went to any of those. And we found a really cute little covered pavilion with rocking chairs and just kind of hung out in the shade for a bit and just enjoyed the views. And we met up with our group again for like the full group for a bit at the beach. And then we went back to the ship to shower and get ready for the lighthouse party on the beach later. And when we got back to our room, we found some Prosecco and a little plate of sweets in our room from our earlier stop at the service desk. So that was really nice of them. They were nice. It just felt like a weird interaction. But, you know, we got some like free Prosecco and some really adorable little sweets that were very tasty. But the letter that was attached to our little gift was about issues that you had with your internet service. And we were like, we got stuck in an elevator. Like, we weren't having issues with the Wi-Fi. Like, we were confined for 20 minutes with a group of people. And I thought I got such a kick out of that note. It was just so funny. And so we got changed, got ready, and we went back to the beach. And we watched the sunset from the lighthouse bar, which was just so beautiful. They had a light show for the lighthouse. It had like a bunch of LED panels or something. And right after that, the all aboard time, it was in like 20 minutes. Everyone from the ship that was still hanging out on the beach, which was most people for the lighthouse party, like we all were hustling back to the boat. And we decided to go back to the room and pack our big checked bag to set it outside the door by 10 p.m. because they were coming by to collect them for the morning, because this was the last night on the ship. And so they were collecting the large bags to later, you know, be taken off of the ship once we pulled into Miami. And so we went back and kind of organized our stuff and got our big bag checked, or not checked, but our big bag packed. And then we just tried to have a good last night. We had our last dinner, and we all just kind of said goodbye to each other in the group because we all had to leave pretty early in the morning. You have to get off of the ship like quite early. Like, I think that we had to be out of our room by 8 a.m. I just adjusted my lighting because it was getting very dark. But yeah, that last night was really fun, and it was the best meal that I had the whole cruise trip, and it was like the Italian themed night, and so that was really, really good food. And then we hung out on our balcony. My husband and I hung out on our balcony one last night, and we could see Miami's lights like way up ahead in the distance, so that was really nice. And it's just a very lovely like end to the trip, just like one last night being able to hang out on the balcony. And then in the morning, because we had already pre-packed most of our stuff the night before, we were able to have a pretty quick morning just getting ready, and we went to eat breakfast in the buffet before we had to get out of the room so that we could like leave our bags in the room, go eat breakfast, and then, you know, come back for our bags. And we, at this point, had kind of learned, like, what are the really good, like, breakfast foods at the buffet. And there was a really weird situation where a family that was, like, not even on the edge tables, like, they were on the inside tables, kept coming by and, like, setting food on the railing for the seabirds to, like, come and get. But it was, like, directly next to, it was like in between our table and really close to the table next to us, and the birds were like swooping down to come get this food. And there was like this family sitting right there with their young kids with their food, and so they like come and set some food on the railing again, and the woman stood up and turned and was like, no, and grabbed the food off of the railing and like put it on their plate, and they were like, no. Because, like, I can't imagine doing that and having these birds, like, swooping right by this, like, random family that you don't know and their children while they're trying to eat their food. Like, it was so confusing. And we, you know, had breakfast, we went back, and we were able to get off of the ship really easily and collect our bag, which was nice. We were kind of worried about like losing our bag at all of these points in the trip, but we never did. And then we got to Miami airport. We just decided to just go to the airport and stay all day. Our flight wasn't until 4 in the afternoon, but my husband had like tons of emails that he said he would, reply to on Friday. So we just wanted to get to the airport and just kind of hang out so that he could like do his work there. Again, I mean, I hadn't felt any motion sickness issues coming on or off the ship and like leaving the cruise for good. Like I didn't feel like wobbly, where I know like some of our group did feel that. So I was really grateful. Like my Dramamine, just like it was solid for me. And we made it back to Portland, and we had decided to get a hotel that night and then go back to my parents the next morning instead of driving in the night, like when we were going to be really tired. I'm really glad that we did that, especially just after a really long flight. And oh my gosh, the Portland airport, after being in Miami airport for so long, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was so beautiful. And, it was just so gorgeous after the remodel. I was like, oh man, this is so lovely. And then we drove the next morning back and picked up our dog. And then we drove all the way back home that same day. We decided we just wanted to get back home. We didn't want to spend a night at my parents', and we were able to give them the souvenirs that we had picked up for them. And our dog was very excited to see us, so that was good. And we always get lots of pictures and stuff when we're away, so that's always lovely. But it's also nice to like see her. And then, yeah, it was just really nice to get back home, and we had like one full day to just kind of like recuperate a bit before like regular life started up again on Monday. And that was our cruise out of Miami. So we were in Miami, and then we had an at-sea day, and then we stopped in Nassau, and then we stopped at the private island, and then we came back to Miami. So it was Monday through Friday. And we had a really fun time. I definitely think that we'll probably do a cruise again in the future. The biggest thing I was nervous about, like I was saying, was my motion sickness. And that wasn't an issue for me at all. I think my husband had more struggles getting his like land legs, is that what it's called, where like after you're on a ship for a while and you go on land, you feel a bit like wobbly. He had more issues with that than I did. Like I didn't really feel it much at all. So I was very pleased with that. And I think we'll probably do another cruise, just to another location that we might not visit outside of a cruise. Like that was kind of the cool thing. I don't know that we ever would have just like gone to Nassau just as a destination itself. And so that was quite cool to be able to see it, quite briefly, but at least see it and get to learn about it and do fun stuff like that. We had a really fun time. It was great getting to know the rest of the wedding party and spending more time with my future sister-in-law. It's always so fun to go on vacation, of course, but there's also something really special about just coming home and just being in your own space and not being surrounded by thousands of strangers. But we did have a fun time. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me talk about my recent trip. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your